Hey folks, welcome back. Krishna here, and in this video, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to actually take a viewer request and draw a mech. So this is a shout out to Fan Art Fanatic 4345. I'm always looking for ideas for upcoming videos, so please feel free to go ahead and write a comment to this video if you would like me to think about the ideas that you're presenting. All right, so with that said and done, mechs come in all different shapes and sizes. I just jumped on Google, looked around, and the way I would approach this is I would actually start off when I'm drawing a mech. I'm going to think about the front view just to go ahead and understand the structure of this particular object. So, uh, typically mechs are having some kind of a, you know, uh, torso-shaped body. This is just like a biped mech. So there, I realize that there are some mechs that have 8 legs and all sorts of things like that. But I'm going to use the symmetry tool here because I think it'll help me get a better sense of the overall structure. So we've got shoulder blades, we've got arms. They're basically going to mimic kind of a very wide torso. And there might be some kind of a dome structure here. There's usually some type of uh, shoulder pads or whatever you want to call that. And then we've got a pelvis, which is essentially going to be something like this. We've got the upper and lower legs. And we'll just move this up so I have more room to draw. So the symmetry tool can be very, very helpful with regards to something like this. And then in terms of hands or other implements, we can segment the hands into actual cylinders. And then we'll have the other finger just stick out just to go ahead and give that a little bit more visual interest. Um, so I'll start off with something like this, and I'll play with variations of that. So that's like a, just kind of a study, if you will. And I'll actually break this down. And a couple of different ways that we can maybe look at this is we could, if we're trying to draw a 3/4 front view, we can make a copy of what we currently have by hitting Command J. Command J is your friend. Command T brings up the transform tool. I will use perspective here, and very similar to a previous video where I talked about how to draw a truck in 3/4 front, 3/4 back view. I'm going to do the same thing here. And it's not going to be an exact one-to-one because this has many more angles. It's not as easy to kind of uh, break down here, but what I'll do is I'll draw 2-point perspectives. So we've got basically leading lines that are kind of moving us out towards the vanishing point on the right. I'm going to basically create vanishing point on the left. I'll draw relatively light. And for things that are somewhat rounded, I can kind of improvise there. So I'm drawing on a new layer and essentially mapping out the form. And then for something like this, I'm basically making those shapes more three-dimensional. That's what I'm doing here. And again, this is just one way. This is the way I'm doing it. I literally am recording this video and thinking about it on the fly. There was no real prep work done. It was just a matter of, okay, I need to record a video today, and this is what I'm going to do. So you're getting it like pretty much fresh from my head. So I've got pelvis, And again, this is my second stab at it. Once I'll have a refinement stage. The hands. I'm gonna make one of the hands actually kind of like be a weapon. It's not gonna actually be fingers. All right, so this is the basic structure that I have here. So I've got something that looks somewhat three-dimensional. There might be a person inside there, but I've got something that basically resembles two-point perspective. Um, I can add some thickness to the form. And with mechs, you have to really think about like how joints actually work. The part that looks a little bit more odd to me, I want to be able to convey the idea that uh, things actually do, in fact, bend. And this is where I'll actually break apart my legs and actually think about the underlying structure. So this, transform perspective is good in a lot of ways, but it's not going to be the end game. So from here, maybe there's like some kind of a plate. So I'll use my knowledge of perspective. I'll lengthen the legs a little bit more. Maybe I'll just change the position of those legs. Let's give him some kind of a gun. So again, rough sketch here. And then you want to think about how these elements actually hinge. The thing that makes it convincing mech is looking at the mechanics of how objects bend and, being able to make the mech look like it has some mobility. So, thinking about adding some hydraulics, maybe you bring the arm in. This is me just trimming some of the extra elements here. I always like to change poses so that they don't look like super duper symmetric. So I think that moving this arm up, let's just give him some kind of a sharp knife. Now I've got my primary shape here. If I want to make this mech look like it's actually moving, and again, this is my process here. I don't want to just simply have something that looks, flat and boring. I want to be able to convey some type of an action with this. Uh, I understand the basic structure of this. Basically, it's like a trapezoidal shape. So we'll have this mech move. It's totally fine to iterate on your designs. Replace the little spheres with rounded forms here. Have some dirt kicked up. So you can see where I started from here. It's a relatively stiff, boring thing. I want to actually give this a little bit more dynamism. So I'm going to use transform and I'll choose warp. And what I can do here is I can just give a little bit more curvature to make this pose look like it's actually moving a little bit more. So this gives a slight line of action. And from there, I can then start to come back in with details and other things that I think would make this mech look more cool. Perhaps, we have some extra, blasters. At this point, I can start to make um, the carvings of the form a little bit more interesting and um, less blocky, I guess. And sometimes what I'll end up doing is just as I work, I will refine that sketch. So your knowledge of basic underlying volumetric shapes is really, really important because it can help you visualize and turn those shapes into different in different angles. And remember that details usually are the items that you put in towards the very, very end. So I'm not super concerned about, uh, trying to capture every single element of detail. This will take at least 2 or 3 more passes to really get it nice and refined. And that's what, in design or illustration, that's really what iteration is all about. It's basically going over what you've drawn, pushing it, making it even more uh, effective or strong as a design. So here I'll just maybe make that a little bit more rounded. I'll bring this up just to go ahead and improve that silhouette. Let's give him a slightly longer weapon. Give him some creepy eyes. So now we can turn off the additional layers and start to really play with, adding details. So, you know, I like doing these kind of videos where it's more along the lines of having to think on the fly because it really does, I think, hopefully gives you some insight into the way my mind is working and how maybe um, I think about these things and maybe how you can think about these things when it comes to making your own stuff. So, I don't really draw mechs, but I think they're pretty cool. Their judgment, they're pretty awesome. I'll give this guy some kneecaps so that way, someone doesn't shoot the hose and basically incapacitate him. And let's just give him some kind of a mouth. And remember, you want to think about material. So we've got color this in, come back in with the lasso tool, give that a little bit of reflectivity. There might be some other buttons or doodads, things that basically give him a much more robotic feel. Maybe he's got some battle damage. Maybe he has some type of marking, you know, Those are all things that I think come in towards the very, very end. Like once you have established what the overall structure is of your mech, you can always come back in and add extra details to really make it stand out. Maybe here what I'll do is just color this in black, just because I want to convey the idea that it's much further away than the leg that's closest to us. So I hope this was helpful. If so, consider giving it a thumbs up so that other folks can find it. And let me know what you think. How do you draw mechs? What are some techniques that you use? And give me some ideas in terms of other things that you would like me to talk about for upcoming videos. So as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.